Across this great nation, almost everyone has been affected in one way or another by this terrible tomato onslaught. Mrs. Williams, I understand your husband is missing.
Yes,
Do you think
he
he's
is.
dead?
Well,
Will you miss him?
Well,
Will you marry again?
Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the Killer Tomatoes podcast. I'm your host, Mike, joined, as always, by co-host Matthew.
You already know I'm obsessed with it.
Hello. And by the illustrious, wonderful, man extraordinaire, Kenny.
Hello, hello.
Boys, welcome back to the Killer Tomatoes podcast. We've been gone for a long time.
Ever since the accident.
So we don't talk about it. We don't talk about the accident.
Ever since we watched that one movie.
That one film that we're here to talk about today. No, it's true. It's true. It's been quite a while since we last recorded. It's been, by our estimations, almost 2 years, an extraordinary amount of time. We had some episodes like in the backlog and stuff like that, just never made their way to light. So this will be the return of Killer Tomatoes. How you boys feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're obsessed with it?
I'm obsessed with it, and I'm excited to start again.
Nice. All right.
Risen up like
It's
the
been
phoenix.
It's been a long time,
It has. It's
for
true.
sure. Some of those episodes, they're probably still around.
No, they're there somewhere.
They're
like
there.
a hole. We're trying to get
Gotta
rid
dig
of
them out.
No, man. But no, so we have a little agenda set up for today. Again, this is more of us getting the feel for doing the podcast again. It's been a little bit, our muscles, we haven't worked this muscle out in quite a long time. So in terms of the things we're going to be looking at today, we want to first recap some of the films that we were going to discuss last year, the year before that, specifically Frailty and Dog Soldiers. Dog Soldiers.
Almost.
So before we go to the other films, because again, we also want to catch up on some of the films that we've seen over the course of the last year. We're recording this almost August 2024. We want to kind of date it a little bit, moving forward.
If we make enough meme references, I think we can date this episode
we
pretty well.
Oh my god! Holy moly.
What's the latest meme right now?
Skibbity toilet the movie, man.
It's also important to say that we're also going to continue. Next episode will be our next movie, which is on the list, which is Basket Case.
And so that's why we'll be returning to the normal form of the show after this episode. But this one is more just an opportunity for us to, again, flex the muscle, get used to recording again, and also talking about these films that, again, we saw maybe 2 years ago and haven't really talked about since, so it's a good opportunity for us to just, how did we remember this film that we maybe liked or didn't like, whatever. All right. So with that, Matthew, what were your thoughts on Frailty? I don't want to get to Dog Soldiers just yet. Frailty.
So, it's just so you understand, the audience. It's been a long time,
very long time.
We've seen these movies, but Frailty was. I remember when we watched it originally, it was a decent surprise. It was a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
The acting was great. It had a really interesting. An original plot.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey, and it was I think Bill Paxton directed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that.
And from what I remember, I highly recommend it. It's a great film. It's a really good film. And I don't know if I remember debating with all of you if this film was a horror movie or not. If we
did talk about that a little bit, about like the thriller or suspense or horror stuff. I think I fell on this being like a thriller movie, like a suspenseful, whatever, but not really a horror film. But it was on the list, because again, remember the premise of the show. we do watch the Rotten Tomatoes top 200 horror films of all time. Frailty was on there, and I think rightfully so. It was really good, honestly. Sadly, again, it's been so many years since we last recorded an episode that Frailty has now fallen off the list, I believe.
Yeah, the list changes. We figured out the list changes every year, but we've decided to stick with the original list. So
we like that list. It's a good list.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you as the listener can't really find that list online unless you go on the Wayback Machine.
Exactly.
Indeed.
You're coming back with us. We're taking you with us.
There are ways. There are ways, and there might be like some magic in the works that maybe we can sort
you
of
have to go
post.
into the.
Although it might be copyright. If the list
it
is
is a Rotten
copyrighted,
Tomatoes website.
I don't actually know if I'm able to like post.
Yeah.
The
Maybe
old list.
coming
but-
soon, the
That one.
Killer Tomatoes website.
Yeah, it's like a dark web.
I think what I might do.
Website.
What I might do is just like change one of the movies, and then like instead of like Frailty being like 190, it's 189.
It's our list then. Yeah.
My list now.
That's my list now.
Kenny's list.
Yeah. So again, Frailty was good. I remember liking it. I enjoyed it. We're only going to do maybe like 5 minutes on Frailty, 5 minutes on Dog Soldiers, because we have honestly other films.
I have amnesia.
Yeah, that we'd like to talk about because and these are films that we've seen within the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Which is an important qualifier. But Frailty was good. Kenny, did you like Frailty? We'll just kind of hit it like AA style. You like Frailty?
I didn't watch it.
That's right. Kenny didn't watch it. So this is a good one. This is a good one.
This was a good one, and it's unfortunate you didn't watch
yeah,
it.
that's
Yeah,
true.
no.
Yeah.
But we should talk about the next film that Kenny was very fortunate to see.
Fortunate.
Wait, it was
Dog
Soldiers. Dog Soldiers.
Soldiers. It was
Dog
soldiers.
Soldiers. Now, here's the funny thing with this film. We don't talk about it. We'll never talk about Dog Soldiers ever. We're done.
Just so you understand, listeners, the episode of Dog Soldiers, it was a controversial film
It was
to say the least amongst us here in the Killer Tomato Studios.
Yes.
But
We don't talk about it.
we don't talk about
We
it.
don't talk about it. We have a whole hour and a half episode of Dog Soldiers that you will never hear.
Yeah.
Kenny caught like 3 battery charges. I caught an assault charge.
Yeah, no, we're just like beating.
It was
each
all
other,
mutual.
man.
It was
That's true. It was like
was-
mutually
it
assured
was
destruction.
beautiful.
It gave Matthew amnesia.
It did.
That was the incident.
It was.
That's
So-
why we stopped recording.
So you should watch Dog Soldiers.
Well, let's go down the list. Mike, do you recommend this movie?
I do recommend Frailty.
No, Dog Soldiers.
You should watch, listener. You should watch Dog Soldiers. You should.
Why do you say that?
I did not like it when I saw it. I haven't seen it since, but I think that you should watch every film that we talk about on the Killer Tomatoes podcast. So
Good pivot.
I'm going to say, yes, watch Dog Soldiers. Also, you know what? The reason I'm going to say you should watch it, Matthew very much enjoyed that film.
That's fair.
You know?
So my opinion after watching that film, it's a movie. It's a movie. It's a
Wow.
Wait a second now.
Glowing
No,
recommendation.
hold up.
This film,
it's
glowing
a movie.
recommendation.
Now, if you are if you consider yourself a hardcore horror enjoyer, you should probably watch it. But as a regular casual horror enjoyer, you might not enjoy this
Now,
film.
why do you
It's one
say
of those.
a hardcore enjoyer would enjoy this film? Because I'll be honest, I like horror a lot. Yet it didn't.
Well, again, you see, when horror, there's a lot of people that are into horror for things like the special effects,
That's
the
true.
gore, the campiness of the film, and
Mhm.
this film had that in tons, right?
Yeah, it did. That's true.
So it's for me as a person who enjoys camp, it was an enjoyable watch. I would recommend to watch it if with friends. If you're gonna
that's a good. Yeah.
you're gonna drink,
Mhm.
it's funny. It has a lot of cool kills, and it's not a movie that should be taken very seriously. But it is it's very divisive here in the studio. Here, my friends here did not appreciate it for the same
It's
reasons
like
that
a
I
fur-
did.
I
it's like
feel
a
I feel like
furry
I'm
picture.
getting like
Yeah,
I'm getting
no.
reference.
No,
Yeah.
but okay.
But-
To create a bridge here,
Mhm.
it is not a good movie. So if you're gonna watch it expecting
Fair.
a good movie, it's not. It is a fun watch. If again you are this horror freak like
the
I
Onion
am.
Knight was in it, right? Remember the dude from Game of Thrones? I'm pretty sure. he
Oh
was in it.
yes,
so,
he
yeah.
was. He was
Yeah.
like a sergeant or like
Yeah. So that's fine. I have
So
vague images.
So there's action in this film. They basically have to like hold themselves out in like a cabin in the woods against werewolves.
See, that was the best part. Okay, that's true. That was probably the coolest part of that film. That basically it was like a siege movie,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think I appreciate that.
But again, it's not a good movie.
I think I got rose tinted glasses. I think you've like
Yeah.
It's one of those films
screwed
that
me, man. I
it's
don't
one of
know
those
what the
films that ages like wine in your brain.
It ages
That's why I
like-
made it on the list.
hell. It ages like dog.
Dog
Soldier.
soldier. So, for reference, dear listener, the reason why this was so contentious was because Matthew enjoyed it, and in general, the vibe by us other two, Michael
Yes.
and me,
Yes.
was that it wasn't the best horror movie that we had seen
Nope.
at that point. I think
It wasn't up to snuff, you know.
it wasn't,
Just
and it also felt a little bit outside of the range of horror. Like obviously there were werewolves, and there was like an
Spoiler.
aspect of
spoiler. Oh my God.
there were dogs.
There were dogs
and they were soldiers.
And
But
I'm pretty sure there was some dog shit in there.
There was.
Oh. We don't say that. We don't say
We
that.
don't talk about that. We don't talk about that here.
But I will say, I think that I mean the movie. I was about to say the movie was interesting. I don't believe that.
You don't believe that?
But
I would be lying to you if I said that.
but I can see why it would be kind of like a fun watch. I honestly think that at the time that I watched it, I just did not enjoy it. I did not have fun with it. I kind of got bored throughout it.
I'm willing to bet if we all sat down with a group of friends and some of the brewskis, we would have a good time.
But I think every movie.
I feel
is
it's a
better than
glowing.
True.
Every
Yeah.
movie
But
is
I feel
better
like
than
there's a certain category of movie that really benefits from that type of viewing experience.
Now, remember when we saw The
And-
Mist like that? Not a feel-good family film.
We watched the remake, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not a feel-good family film.
This is one of those films that you could poke fun of. There's a lot of
Yeah,
goofiness.
it's got like a B-movie quality.
Again,
to
it's
it, so
very.
good.
It's again, if you're an enjoyer of camp, this is it.
This is true.
And I'm the biggest enjoyer of camp. But
I remember the plot being kind of a
yeah,
mess.
I barely remember the play. Had a plot? Oh my God, I just remember it was like they're
And
holding
there's
up
a
in
lot
house
of-
or something.
there's a lot of like machismo and stuff. So
Yeah.
again, very campy movie.
It's like the Doom movie. Remember the Doom
Yeah.
movie?
The
Ever seen
which
the
one?
Doom?
With
Doom,
The
the
Rock.
one with the Rock.
Yes.
the,
Was also Carl Urban from The Boys. I think he was in that as well.
okay.
I think so.
All right.
Just saying.
All right.
So there we
that's-
go. So those are the
that's
two
Dog
films.
Soldiers.
Those are the two films, Dog Soldiers and Frailty, that you would have gotten an episode on in the last 2 years.
But you won't.
You won't. You never will. You'll have these 15 minutes.
And you will be satisfied.
Yeah, you'll be very satisfied with just these 15 minutes. But moving forward, again, you'll have Basket Case. But now
My
we can
favorite
get
movie of all time.
into the actual films that we wanted to talk about, that we've seen in the last 6 months.
I think we should start maybe with like not the most recent, but the oldest
Okay.
ones.
Well, so here's the list that we have. Here's
Okay.
the 3 films that we're going to be talking about today. We can add throughout the discussion if you want. But so the 3 films we have are Late Night with the Devil, In a Violent Nature, and Longlegs. These are the 3 films that we were going to talk about today. Where do you want to start, Matthew?
Let's start in what's it called again?
In a Violent Nature.
No.
Late Night with the
Late Night
Devil?
with the Devil.
You
Yeah.
want to start there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is one of those movies. I think I watched it first out
I
of
think
our
you
trio.
did. Yeah. Mhm.
I watched it in theaters, and this was a movie that I was kind of on my radar because I have a Shudder subscription, and that was a Shudder produced movie, and it was advertised for a while on Shudder. And let me tell you, this was honestly a very surprising film. One of the most enjoyable horror experiences I had in the theater since maybe Barbarian.
Yes.
Mhm.
For sure.
It was honestly, it was just a solid horror movie. It had it all. It had an interesting concept. It had great effects. It had a great payoff. It was just a perfect horror film.
The feeling I got with it. When you go ahead and like I don't know, have a meal that you haven't had in a while,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And let's say like I don't
Give me
know,
a meal.
fried chicken or
Fried
something
chicken,
like some kind of hearty
Yeah.
comfort food,
Okay.
and you have a really good meal that night, and then you say, "Wow, that is the quintessential fried
It hit
chicken
the
with
spot.
No,
gravy."
yeah, yeah.
and
It hit the
it
spot.
hit the spot.
If horror was a restaurant, this
Yes.
would be like the steak.
Exactly.
Like it was just a steak horror meal. So
Exactly.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Mhm.
So-
And yeah, I don't know, I mean, I honestly loved it. The aesthetics of it. I mean, I guess we can start talking about it.
Yeah, I mean,
more
we could dive
concretely, but-
into it a little bit. So I'd never seen the other films from these directors, and I still haven't. Do you know about these directors at all?
Nope.
It's Cameron Cairns and Colin Cairns.
What
I'd
else they
never
make?
heard of these people.
What else they make?
They did 100 Bloody Acres. Don't know about this film. Scare Campaign. Never heard of this film. And The Mule, which I've also never heard of.
Nope.
So it is interesting to me that Late Night with the Devil like kind of popped off in popularity.
Yeah.
Do you think it was in part because of that lead actor? He was in Suicide Squad.
I think it was. I think it was the
premise as well. You know, just like the trailer.
I think it was like Shudder really pushed the film.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I think they carried it. I think they probably brought in that actor and then they pushed in marketing.
Yeah.
I don't know, like the directors. Again, I don't want to talk about them because I haven't seen their other films, but
well, I like this one. It's really good.
It was good. I think that Shudder was just hedging their bets on the film.
Yeah, I think in terms of like aesthetics, though, because that's probably the most interesting part of the film for me. The kind of occulty side, while interesting, and I think visually very interesting, especially towards the end of the film, the late night show television aesthetic. As someone who is a kind of someone who's very interested in the history of film and the history of television specifically, it was a great mashup moment for me. And I think in terms of some of the stuff that's happening in the film, because it's got the late night bits and then it has like the behind the scenes bits.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And those were woven together so skillfully. It was really excellent. And I think like that move from, it was, if I remember correctly, it was like black and white for the behind the scenes bits.
Yep.
Color for the on-air bits. There was such like a I don't know, such like
an interaction with the characters.
They melded so nicely.
It felt like you were the camera itself was like a crew member.
Yeah.
You
know,
the show was called Night Owls, right? Wasn't that the name
I think
of the show?
so. Yeah,
Something like that. I remember the two big like eyes.
And it was this whole like commentary on not only late night television but like Hollywood
spectacle.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's this is actually a good exercise for us. Let's try to remember what the plot of the film is. So I don't think any of us have seen it within the last 6 months, basically.
I'll bite this challenge.
Yeah. Here, give it a try.
So I'm not gonna remember any of the characters' names, but there was this guy is like he was like an actor, and then he started hosting, and he's basically like who's that big late night host?
Like Johnny Carson.
He's actually a competitor.
Yeah,
and that's
he is a competitor of Johnny Carson.
But he's like an analog to him, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah.
And
he's a late night guy.
Yeah, and you just follow his career to its like to the point where like he reaches a height and then he falls in the ratings, and then he picked up the show Night Owls and it's on its way going down, and he's pulling bigger and bigger stunts to try to
you're
trying to match Johnny Carson.
You're basically witnessing the aftermath of the height of this man's popularity and like the desperation that comes from trying to maintain that popularity, that certain degree of fame and stuff.
Yeah. So he I guess like this is as you're learning the plot, but I guess like as the viewer, as you're watching it, this is the plot you get, but then you find out that he goes to like the Bohemian Grove. And he like sells his soul or something. He sold his wife.
Yeah, that was the whole thing with his wife. Yeah.
And she's dying of cancer. So he's essentially doing anything at any cost to get that popularity back. And then he gets this girl who is possessed by some demon, and he gets her on the show, and then basically pushes that person or that girl to the extreme against her doctor, who is a psychologist. And there's this whole drama between all of them. And then guess what? She's actually possessed, and the show explodes.
Yeah, there's basically that great scene at the end where she's
spoilers.
Fully, I mean, again, you're listening.
I mean, we're at this point,
you're deep in it, man.
Yeah.
But it's that moment where do you remember her head?
Yeah. Splits open.
It's like incredible. Like all the special effects and shit like that looked pretty goofy, but
I think it was
there was like a charm,
in a good way.
No, yeah,
like
there was an incredible charm to it.
Yeah,
because even that scene where the charlatan man throws up, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah.
Where it's like all of it looked very
hokey.
Low budget, kind of hokey and stuff like that. But I think it melds well with the moment. This 70s kind of everyone's dressed in a very, they're big flowing pants and stuff like that. There's a certain hokiness to it all that I very much appreciated. But I think the part that stuck with me the most was basically just how dark and like cynical that movie is, just like in terms of its vibe. I loved it. I was like so drawn to just the mood of the whole thing.
Yeah,
incredible.
They do a great job. It really like the news segments and all that stuff. Really, it really like. Again, I wasn't around in the 70s.
I mean, it felt like watching a Netflix documentary.
But it felt like watching a documentary. Like they really nailed the period.
It's like watching Thin Blue Line or something.
Yeah.
You know?
So the to give a little bit more context. The movie starts. It begins saying like, this is the episode, the most watched.
Yeah, it has
episode.
like a frame narrative around
exactly.
it.
So it starts out by saying, in an age where these variety late night shows are competing with each other, and they're trying to get to bigger and bigger spectacles, this is the most watched show. Which I think it also outlines that it was still lower watched than Johnny Carson. This is the most watched show for Night Owls, which is the show that our main character is in. And it sort of sets up again, and as you said, it sets up this dynamic where you have the late night show,
the episode itself,
and you have this opportunity where, and again, because it's on a time, so it's a live show. Technically, it's like live recorded, and live broadcasted, and the way that it's set up creates this situation where the characters themselves are also on a timer.
Yes.
The spectacle's on a timer, the guests are on a timer. They're trying to create this big moment in the show to get more viewings, but at the same time, their own judgment can only go so far because their own judgment is stopped by the timer.
Yes.
So the way that it works, if you can imagine it, is you have the actual show and then commercial breaks in between the sections of actual show. And in this, you have these behind the scene scenes.
Yeah, it's BTS footage, basically.
Yeah, exactly. BTS footage where the characters are having discussions, they're freaking out, they're reacting almost like you want real characters.
They're reacting to the ratings in real time, because that's also something that's great about it, is that lead character. What's the actor's name? It was like David something. But basically, the whole time, he's getting live feedback about not the Nielsen ratings, but basically the Nielsen ratings. Like, oh my God, you have a lot of people watching right now and stuff like that. And it's the conflict with the rest of the crew.
Yes.
Specifically his second, right? His like his
producer, I guess.
Yeah, well, his producer.
No, his
sidekick.
Side host.
Like you know how like Conan has
the Yes Man. Oh, yes. Yeah.
You know, like kind of like that, you know, his boy that like introduces the show and
hype man,
like that. His hype man, yeah. So that whole conflict where he's like getting legitimately terrified, and even there's this great moment where the psychic, who again it kind of opens the show, he dies at one point.
But he finds out behind the scenes.
Exactly. And in that behind the scenes footage, you find out that this character has died, and you see kind of the whole cast slowly learning about what has happened. And again, it's this great moment. This falls into basically one of my favorite types of films, which is people locked in a room together, you know, like trying to puzzle things out and piece things together. This is that on this like beautifully grand scale of television. You know, it's kind of wonderful. It's a little bit like Cube or something. You know, these films where again you have characters locked into a situation, but again almost trapped by this man's own egotism and his narcissism. You know, keeping them isolated in here for this chase of spectacle. Pretty incredible.
And in general, honestly, I really liked that interplay. That was honestly, I felt that a lot of the times with a lot of any movie in general, if you have the same sort of like plot story beat that you're following, it sort of creates comfort. And comfort is something that you really don't want in a horror movie. And I think the back and forth between behind the scenes, behind the freaking out, behind like, oh, do we go ahead and do this one thing that's going to scar this girl? That back and forth really kept you on your toes in a way that I think, I mean, it made the movie for me extremely enjoyable.
It was doing what not the live exorcism. It was like the live communication.
Yeah, he was going to speak with the demon. But I also found how interesting it was that during the live segments, like you had like tension buildup.
Yes.
And you had there was points where I was genuinely like super tense, and then it was broken up by a commercial break.
Yes.
And that's genius. When that happened, I like physically like breathed out like, wow.
Yeah.
Well, so that's something that's really interesting. It's like they build in a cliffhanger into a film. Which is pretty incredible.
Because it's not gone yet.
No.
Like by that time when they do that commercial break, it breaks the tension, but you slowly realize like, wait a second.
Yeah.
It's still bad.
That's where the behind the scenes footage is going to come in. And
there's a particular moment in the movie where they're all sitting, all the characters sitting in a sofa, and then there's a knife that they put next to like a chair next to the girl, and the whole time you're watching it live, you're like, oh my god, she's going to grab the knife and flail this dude.
Yeah.
And the tension is building. The camera's focusing on that knife, and then commercial break.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then during the scene where it's supposed to be like a relief from stress, you see the characters moving around and talking, whatever. The knife is missing, and then the live again starts.
Yeah.
And that's just masterful. It's great.
100%.
And that's why. So like this idea of using the cliffhanger in a film, multiple times throughout the film. And then basically filling the cliffhanger with the content of the behind the scenes footage. It does this great job of like, it has a certain rhythm to its suspense that's really wonderful. And again, I don't want to sit here and say, oh, this is the greatest film I've ever seen, like this, but it really did a wonderful job playing with the elements of horror that I love.
Yes,
which is again confining people into this horrifying situation. Use the occult element, which again we'll return to later on in this podcast, and then also was formally really interesting. Like its structure was very interesting.
Yep.
Overall,
great film.
This gets high marks from the Killer Tomatoes.
Last movie I saw that I was generally like, wow, when it came out of the theater.
That was a year ago.
And that's a good segue to
oh my god.
Next films.
Okay, so the next film that we're going to talk about is a film that I did not see, but Matthew and Kenny did see this film. And we've talked about this before, but I'm very interested to get a more kind of like deep dive discussion about what made this film work and what made it didn't. We're talking about In a Violent Nature. And part of the reason that I'm interested, and this is just like a framing device, is in my discussions with Matthew has kind of indicated that horror, the state of horror as like a genre, it seems to be moving away from you. Like certain films seem to be kind of moving in a direction.
You're framing me as the horror reactionary.
No, not a reactionary. I wouldn't necessarily say a reactionary, but just like
back when horror movies were good.
Well, back when they were good, But like to pin it in with how you love camp. In a Violent Nature has that camp.
Yeah.
But it's also mixed in with a certain style of film, which I think Kenny has called the A24ification of film. And it's this interesting blending of the campiness and this more, maybe some would say, a psychologically attuned, like you're really trying to build the suspense through long tracking shots.
Yeah.
Others would call it boring. I wouldn't call it boring.
The aesthetics of artistry. And I don't want to say I don't want to imply by that it can't achieve it.
Sure, yeah.
But that is sort of like what the current popular perception of artistry is. It's the long tracking shots, the dollies, the mouth music.
Yes.
Multiple times. I think we've mentioned mouth music before, just because you sort of run into it.
Yeah.
The worst indication, I think, for the three of us being Men. If you've seen Men,
yes,
the Alex Garland film, which I think the three of us like Alex Garland quite a lot. Bit. I don't think any of us like that film, and I think it's an indication of this. And I, again, haven't seen it a little.
It has similar shots like Men, where there's these still shots of nature, almost exactly.
Yeah.
And if anything, in this movie, it's longer.
Yeah.
So just so you understand about, if you guys haven't seen the film, it's the concept is very novel and it's super interesting. It's there's been a couple movies like this, but you're essentially it's a slasher flick from kind of like, I guess, the following the killer, not following the victims. Usually you go into the forest and you're following the teenagers. No, you're following you see like the where the killer came from, when he woke up, and you're following him the entire film. Very interesting concept. and it's again they make it's a classic slasher flick. They're camping or they're in a log cabin, and you have this slasher with a like he just goes around. He's huge and he just butchers people. The kills are great. The teenagers are stupid. Just like any
As
other.
they should be.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good slasher film.
They're teenagers or college students. I don't know.
Yeah.
Young people.
The young people that aren't like the hideously deformed monster man that is in A Violent Nature.
And just like they're the meat to put into the slaughter. But the problem with the movie is that you have a very interesting concept, but then you have like again, like you have the killer, you follow the killer, and it's building tension by following this killer slowly walk. But there's a lot of, like, I'd say 20 to 30% of this film is just nature shots. Like you have a crazy campy slasher kill where like this girl's doing like a yoga pose, and he literally grabs her back from she tears her spinal, like her spine from her back, and like contorts her, right? Some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But then
the
after
yoga kill, all that kind of stuff.
after that happens, you get like 5 minutes of nature. Nature is beautiful, and I get what it's trying to do. It's trying to juxtapose the nature, the beautiful, serene nature, with this incredible violence you're seeing on screen. But like, I don't understand why they're doing that. Like, what's the purpose of doing that when your film, again, like the plot, everything that's happening in the film, it's classic slasher, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work with what's going on. It's a very campy film, and at times it's funny, but then it has these long shots of nature for what? Like, it's these two concepts that are just, honestly, they're not coming together. They're just butting heads, and it
I mean, do you think that's on purpose?
Yeah, obviously.
But so like what about that? So like, again, I didn't see this, but conceptually, that sounds interesting. As you pitch it
on paper, it's interesting.
It sounds very interesting.
On paper, it's interesting. But imagine you're literally watching, you're watching what's that film that we watched? Friday the 13th, the 4.
Yeah.
The super campy one where it turns out that the cousin or whatever
they went to space.
That's silly of a movie, but then they're like, now take me seriously.
Yeah,
look at nature. Like that doesn't work. It's just, you have super silly, and then you have take this seriously for a second. Look at the nature. Like the violence is so over the top.
Yeah, it is gratuitous. Those are the scenes I've seen in the film. These are the kills.
That the message is not like, it doesn't, I don't know, maybe you can illuminate the message, since the violence is so over the top, it's just fantastical, right?
Yeah.
So it's silly. And then you have
taking antithetical to nature.
Exactly. Maybe if they toned down and they made the serial killer more realistic, and then they did that with the serene shots, then I can get that message. But the movie itself is so silly and campy that the nature is just like, I'm rolling my eyes because I can't take it seriously. Yeah, this guy just got turned into a pretzel. Like, it doesn't.
I think it's the classic archetype of like violence in a slasher film. It's always like the comeuppance.
Yeah,
like it makes an observation of the person getting killed, and then it kills them in a funny way.
Yeah.
The yoga person gets turned into a pretzel.
Yeah.
Like the jock gets like their dick like chopped off.
It sounds very like my God, very Friday the 13th. No, not Friday the 13th. I'm thinking of Nightmare on Elm Street, like the ironic kill.
It's like watching. It's like watching. If you literally, it's so silly that it's to the top. It's like Imagine if you were watching Scary Movie.
Yeah.
And then they did a panning shot for like 5 minutes, and they did that. They did that every 20 minutes.
Oh, okay, well, no.
Maybe that might be funny if they did it once for like, we're making fun of the artsy films. But this film is trying. You want to take me seriously. I'm trying to say something about violence and nature, and like, I couldn't buy in. And in fact, for a lot of that, I was bored, and I wanted to see more of the campiness because that's the film.
That's the stuff you love, man.
But even then, like I could see the concept working.
Yeah.
In with a different direction, right? Like,
interesting.
So this movie was, I believe, distributed by Shudder. I think like it was
In a Violent Nature, really.
I think. Well, I remember watching a trailer, and it was saying something along the lines of like, experience this movie in Shudder. I'm sure it had like a festival run before that. People were saying like many great things about it, and the way that it was advertised to some degree was, this is a deconstruction of the slasher genre. And what's weird about that, right, is that I guess it would imply that by a deconstruction of the slasher genre, I guess like one approach would be like, what if you took me seriously? What if you took the slasher like idea seriously? But I don't think that this was the way to take slasher films more seriously. I think I agree with Matthew in the sense of like, I can see it asking to be taken seriously, but I think in reality, I think it tried to go, I guess, the A24 route. I don't necessarily unilaterally hate A24, but it went the A24 route of like these sort of almost pretentious kind of cinematic techniques.
Let the hate flow through.
Cinematic techniques to sort of like garner some kind of like authenticity from it. Like, okay, this isn't your average slasher film. This is slasher but serious.
But the thing is that it was your average slasher film.
Yes.
That's an interesting point.
I could see the movie working if it went in one of two directions. If it went in the direction where it wanted to deconstruct the slasher, maybe tone down on the campiness of the kills, make them more brutal, make it more graphic, and
well, they're pretty graphic.
But make it more graphic in a believable, grittier sense, like a Serbian film or something like crazy shit like that, right?
Or make the characters deal with the repercussions
in a realistic manner.
Well, but it seems like the point of the film, just from what you guys were saying, though, is that it's following the killer's point of view.
Yes.
So like it seems like clearly the characters, they're more like cardboard kills, basically. That they would be,
but does
vapid, 2-dimensional from the perspective of the killer.
You leave the killer you're not like, it's not a POV shot, like.
No, I don't think it's not POV, but like you're kind of with him.
You're with him. You leave him in the second part of the film, and you're following survivors, right? Yeah. But again, it's the typical slasher film. If anything, it done in a way that's not as interesting as the classic slasher films.
And the thing is, I would say honestly that general direction of like, okay, you as the slasher, if you're doing a POV from the slasher's point of view, again, I just repeated myself, but if you're doing this, then you're seeing these characters as vapid, increasingly vapid.
Yeah,
slasher films already do that with their own sequels.
Yeah,
the whole reason why they get campier and schlockier is because the characters literally just become caricatures.
Yeah, exactly.
They start out like the first Friday the 13th. It was a camp of like horny teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
By the one where they go to space, it is a parody of the horny teenagers, but in space.
Yeah.
So slasher films already
deconstruct
aspect.
themselves. They already
almost honestly. So an actual different deconstruction of the slasher film would probably try to dial that down, honestly.
Interesting. What about, okay, so this is something that I read about, again, haven't seen it, the ending of the film. That from what I understood, that there was something interesting about the ending of the film. From what I understood, it was a character basically being driven off.
Yeah. It was it was good. It was tense.
Yeah.
From what I remember, it was really tense. And the whole time I was on the edge of my seat, like, oh, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Nothing really happens, right? So it's, I guess, a testament to the tension that the film has made you feel throughout.
Yeah.
But again, like the movie, I wouldn't say it's a bad film.
Yeah.
It's good. No. It feels like wasted potential. Like it had really cool concepts. Just they didn't fall through.
Interesting. Do you feel that's the same way, Kenny?
I honestly agree. I think the kills were awesomely creative. Yeah. I liked the shots just by themselves. They were nice, but again, it didn't have cohesion.
It didn't fit.
It didn't fit.
It's like eating a steak with Skittles or something. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was like a fine film in theory, but like
Yeah, I'd say it was. I say go watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
it's good to. Honestly, it's so novel. I love like this is the part of horror that it's a lot of original stuff, and this is an original film, and it has good in it.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, I would recommend to watch it, but you might come out with the same frustrations that I had.
Also, if you want POV shots from the slasher's perspective, Halloween already has that.
Halloween does have that. That's true. Yeah. So
when Michael Myers
goes to
turns
kill
on the
his,
jets.
yeah. Oh, and he kills his sister, right? That's
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
John Carpenter's been doing
The
that for
original
years.
one has that when he's a kid.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
how the film
exactly.
starts. It was a POV shot.
I again, really good, like pretty damn good movie. I don't think this is a bad movie in the slightest, but I don't. Yeah, slasher. There are better slashers.
But so like I'm curious though. Do you see this film as like a kind of one-off novel kind of experiment in slashers and horror films generally?
That's a good segue because watching that movie and then watching the next movies we're going to talk about really made me feel like this is a new trend.
Like a direction that horror is going in. So we're talking about Longlegs.
Speaking of lost potential.
Yeah, so this will be the final film that we're going to kind of round.
I thought we were going to talk about 4 films, no?
Oh, which one was the fourth one? Oh, what we got here?
Wait. Surprise film?
I got Longlegs and A Violent Nature and Late Night with the Devil. You want to talk about Arcadian?
No.
Let's talk about Arcadian.
I could talk about give you like a sentence.
All right. Well, let's give us the sentence on Arcadian because I also haven't seen Arcadian. But
that's the first horror movie I saw, 2024.
Okay.
It's a Nicolas Cage movie. The second Nicolas Cage movie on today's episode.
That's true. Yeah.
And it's another all right movie. It's I would say it's at the same level.
You liked it, right?
I liked it. I enjoyed it more, I guess, than in Violent Nature. But again, it's not like a masterpiece. I'd say, it's slightly above the middle of my list.
Was it that one? I saw the trailer. It was like Quiet Place-esque.
It has the feel of it's trying to be a AAA blockbuster.
Okay.
It has the same plot. There's teenagers surviving in a post-apocalyptic world, but it does fall short of that goal, throughout, just with the production value, and the acting.
I can live with that though, because the thing is, Late Night with the Devil, for instance, again, the production value.
No.
It's campy. It's whatever. It's nothing. In fact, in certain places, it's legitimately bad. But I think I like as long as the story is interesting.
Basket Case, famously, the next movie that we're talking about, really low budget. No.
$10
really low budget. I think it was like
$40,000.
I think it was it was 30 something.
Yeah.
30.
Yeah, something very low.
So it felt like a Arcadian, felt like a kind of like a YA movie adaptation.
Okay. Yeah.
But it obviously, if that YA style story went horror. I don't know if that's delivered to your brain.
Was Nicolas Cage good in it?
Yeah, he's Nicolas Cage, he's the dad, and he has 2 sons, and essentially it's a post-apocalyptic world where there's these creatures.
Okay.
I don't know.
What are the creatures? What are they? I didn't get.
They're new. They're new concept.
Oh, they're new concept.
Yeah, they're not. They're not really similar to anything. They kind of remind me of Dark Souls enemies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa, really? You got my attention.
They're kind of werewolf spiders things, and they morph. It's weird. They're weird, and they combine to make big balls that they roll. They're crazy.
Ooh.
That's honestly one of the biggest things I liked about the film, how original the monsters were.
Okay.
And honestly, truly terrifying. There was scenes super tense where you're introduced to the monsters for the first time, and it's the kid basically laying a trap for one of the monsters. He's in the living room and he's sitting on a table, and he has the door slightly open, or there's a window on the door that's slightly open, and you see the monster they kind of look like those monsters from the Scooby-Doo 2 movie.
The virtual space one?
No, the live action.
Monsters Unleashed.
Oh,
the Scrappy-Doo monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
They kind of look like that, kind of.
Okay.
All right.
They
suddenly don't seem that terrifying.
They're built the same. They're cousins.
When are we doing an episode on Scooby-Doo 2?
Don't worry. It's James Gunn.
But the monster kind of pokes his finger in, and then you see his finger elongate all the way through the living room, and his nail turns razor sharp, and it goes to the kid's neck, and then right when you think you're gonna see gore happen, the kid runs back and unleashes a cage or something, or I don't know what happens. I don't remember, and he captures one of them, and super
kind of dope. Wait,
exactly.
actually,
There's a lot of interesting novel stuff in this movie, and I would say it's a good watch.
Worth the watch.
It's worth the watch again. There's a lot of bad in this film too. A lot of YA stuff. Like there's like the one of the boys falls in love with a girl from a different settlement, and you have all that drama, you know. But the stuff that's good is good. There was a lot of funny stuff. Nicolas Cage is a badass, and he there's just like a lot of like over the top jumping the shark moments where he gets like get in the refrigerator. It's like in The Last Stand where all the monsters are running in, and like he closes the kids in the refrigerator and he like blows the house up by.
Yo, he has a hero moment.
Yeah, and then the kids survive like in Indiana Jones. Stuff like that.
Nuclear blast.
It's really, honestly, I would recommend it.
I may watch it and do like a quick 5 on it.
It's a good time. It's a good time. Just don't expect the masterpiece. There's so much wrong with it. But again,
interesting.
I came out of that movie happy because it was an original concept, and the monsters were super interesting, and Nicolas Cage had me laughing.
That's awesome.
Okay,
awesome.
Now Nicolas Cage laughing. Let's talk about Longlegs. Let's now get into Longlegs. Now, Longlegs is an interesting one. So the three of us have seen this film, and I think that you will find a range of emotions.
You will find 3 opinions.
You will find 3 very different opinions, ranging from this was dog
soldiers.
Shit.
I said it.
No, that this was no good. Others finding it middling, and one of us finding it potentially kind of interesting.
And that's why we're here.
So let's get into it. Now, Longlegs had an incredible kind of media hype campaign. The three of us, I think, were deeply susceptible to it. We were very excited to watch this film. Personally, I loved The Black Coat's Daughter. Even The Pretty Thing on the Walls, that's the other Oz Perkins film. I like his style.
Being the director, correct?
Yeah, this is the director, Oz Perkins, and his style is kind of very similar to, again, this kind of more slow ratcheting up of the tension, slowly building up a certain kind of mystery. You have a lot of images that kind of percolate and pique your interest, and then he will slowly kind of give you more information as the film progresses. And I remember The Black Coat's Daughter in particular, it falls in with that Late Night with the Devil kind of story sensibility of locking characters into a location. So Black Coat's Daughter in particular, they're locked in a school.
Yeah.
Effectively. And it was great. It was a great, great film. I really loved it. Longlegs, though, I think that this film, you have one very good film and another potentially interesting film kind of trapped within the same movie. How do we want to handle this one? Because it's such a beast of a film. There's so much happening in it, and it's long, it's quite dense, and it really is kind of bifurcated down the middle as like 2 almost entirely separate entities.
We can start just describing the plot of the movie, and I think we'll run into our opinions through the plot, basically.
What amazed me was that the people came out of this film saying this movie was so terrifying.
Yeah.
I couldn't walk home at night. And then you have people like me who came out and was like, this was one of the most boring movies. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel an ounce of tension. And it's crazy how a film can produce those 2 different emotions.
I didn't find it scary, but I mean, I guess we can start. But I didn't find it scary.
Yeah, let's get into it. So basically, in terms of the plot of the film, I'm going to go based off of just straight memory what I remember. You have lead character.
Yes,
I forgot what her name is.
Well, you don't know that's lead character. You just see a little girl.
Oh,
in the snow. You don't know that she's actually the main character.
That's how the film started. I straight up forgot about that. So yeah, you get this. Basically, it's this snowy house, kind of isolated from everyone else. You see a car driving towards this home. Then it's, if I remember correctly, you don't really know who's driving this car, and it's left kind of just outside of frame to kind of start building up a certain kind of mystique around this character. The little girl, I believe, from the window, sees this car pull up. She walks outside. She kind of looks in multiple locations, if I remember correctly, trying to see like, okay, where is this person hiding out, if anything? She stumbles upon Nicolas Cage, basically. Let's just be honest. It's
his face at that point is out of frame. Face
is out of frame, and that's something formally like technically that's quite interesting about this is that it's kind of almost shot in like.
Oh yes, that's a very big important thing. Yeah. It is letterbox.
Yeah, it's in letterbox format. So his nose and above is just outside of frame, but you see his mouth, and specifically you see that like there's this white makeup covering his face. And I believe it's also in that moment where he's like, "Oh, I wore my long legs today,"
and then he ducks.
Then he lowers into the frame. That the moment he does that, cut, and then you get the kind of opening credits scene. Very effective opening scene.
Yes,
it was
amazing. It was great. I actually really liked it.
And I thought in terms of building up the character of Longlegs, and having I think some kind of like terror surrounding this whoever this figure is. Legitimately, it worked for me. You know, I thought that was a great kind of opening segment for the whole film.
For sure.
After that, she works for the FBI.
Well, so we don't know. We just see the main character.
Oh wait, aren't they in like a? Aren't they in a?
They start in an FBI building.
Yeah, they're like an FBI building.
So they're doing an APB.
Yes,
an all points bulletin.
All points bulletin
on a suspected. Well, at this point, confirmed.
Yes,
serial killer.
Yeah.
But they don't know where he's hiding.
Exactly. Yes.
So what their plan is that they're going to go door to door and try and see if someone has heard about them.
Yes.
And at that point, we zoom in on our main character, and she's sort of like this reserved, shy, almost like. I mean, honestly, a little bit like I guess the word would be like neurodivergent coded.
Yeah.
Right. And the way that we see it happen is they're about to go into a street to start questioning. And when that happens, instead of going door to door, going house to house,
she gets like an itch.
Exactly. Yeah. She gets like a vibe sense with one of the houses.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No. Basically, you're right. That she gets like a sense, like a little itch that like I think her partner wants to walk over into this other house, and she's like, "He's there. I know he's there." And I believe they walk over there, and it's this great moment. And again, the first...
And she tells him, call it in.
Yeah, call it in, get us back up. And he's like, no, it's fine, whatever. Walks to the front door, immediately popped in the head.
Yep.
Killed. That character gone.
Amazing scene.
Yeah, and it's great. And the first 15 minutes of this film are fantastic. Really, really fantastic.
I have to agree.
Okay.
I'll agree on that.
Okay, so you agree that it's fantastic.
But then after that...
Okay, but so you think it goes downhill like pretty much immediately after this point?
Yeah.
So see, I don't know if this is the point where I'd say the downhill trend.
Do we all have downhills for this, or
I think mine is more like a little slope. It levels out. It levels out. It's nothing too.
I think the setup was so far interesting, right? But
100%.
Again, like the reason that's my downhill was that
nothing ever hits that high.
Nothing ever hits that high. Nothing ever. Again, I have a lot of like. I don't want to. I guess we'll just talk about it. Like the to me the mystery is never really a mystery. It's all delivered to her. I never feel like interested in like who this Longlegs person is. I'm just never like, again, like she's giving clues, and then when she can't figure it out, she's given like the codex, like,
and then she's just told the story,
and then
so she doesn't feel like a very active participant.
Exactly, and then
the narrative,
and then like I just feel like, again, like the way the film is staged, right? Like you have usually like empty building, two characters talking,
yep,
and it just feels the empty building, two characters talking just feels like an A24 artsy move. And I can never like suspend my disbelief. Like I never felt like this was an FBI agent or this was a detective, because I never felt like she was that. I felt like she was a character in an artsy film.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because it was never, she was never working in an office. There was never people around her, and there's a reason for that.
So it
right?
felt a little bit too like reserved.
Sure. I mean, like there's a reason for why she's always working in empty buildings and she's always by herself working in a big room, big office, and she's working on the floor with no furniture. Like there's reasons for that to feel isolated or whatever. But it just took me out of that film. I never believed that she was in any danger. It just felt like I was watching, like, again, an arts movie.
Well, so the immediate comp for this movie is Silence of the Lambs. Right?
Yes.
That's the general kind of discussion around this.
But
even the
they're
scene
not
where she
similar
goes
at
in.
all.
Oh, so you don't think they're similar at all?
Well, they have similar plot points, right? But
Yeah.
then
They start
that's where
similar.
They
that's
start
it.
similarly.
But that's
Yeah.
it. They're not the same film type.
No. I wouldn't say that they're the same film type or anything like that. But like that was the comp for this movie was okay, that there's a certain kind of Silence of the Lambs vibe.
Yeah.
Even again in certain types of like narrative beats, it hits those things. But again, in a very limited fashion. I don't want to draw out that comparison too much. But for instance, in Silence of the Lambs, you have Jodie Foster, who is, I guess, would you say that you like believe the fact that she's
a believable FBI agent. She's she's working. She's a character that you do believe that she's an FBI agent. She's she's professional. She's working in a field that's predominantly men, and she's dealing with those issues. And again, it's a believable character grounded in a believable world. This film is not trying to do that, and I understand that. But again, that works in certain instances, and it didn't work for me. Right.
That's interesting.
So one of the interesting things, right? And I do actually believe that this movie does take a lot of inspiration, although not all of it, but a lot of inspiration from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
And even the whole alone thing, like the sort of misfit FBI agent trying to, get ahead in the agency. The reason I say this is because even the themes of like alone, right? You have the themes of she's alone in a building, she's alone trying to solve this mystery through her own methods. The same thing with Jodie Foster, even to the point where in the beginning of Silence of the Lambs, you have this moment, very iconic, where she's doing the obstacle course alone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it sort of frames it as like, this is the sort of like type of character that we're following. This is someone that will go through obstacles alone through the movie. Not even on the nose, but like, when you think about it, I guess like post the facto, like, this is
setting up
foreshadowing.
They're foreshadowing a certain kind of like character trait, and also how especially narrative beats will be handled throughout the film.
Exactly. And I think this movie sets that up as well.
Yeah.
But here's my downhill.
Okay.
My downhill is, and I didn't watch any of the promotional videos. I didn't watch any of the trailers. I came in just based on everyone's not even recommendation. Just we were going to watch a movie together.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and go watch a horror movie together. I was excited because everyone seemed to be excited for it. I didn't watch anything. I had no promises whatsoever. I watched the movie, and I think through the first half of the movie, I was almost promised a different movie than was delivered. And not always is that a bad thing. There's such a thing as subversion. But for me, I think my problem was I would have liked the other movie so much more.
Let's be explicit.
Yes.
What was the film that you think you were promised, and what was the film that you were given?
I was promised an FBI thriller whereby there is an aspect of the occult, but you're not confirmed the occult.
Exactly. Okay.
You're not confirmed the occult. You're not. It's like Seven. It's like Seven. It's Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs doesn't have
better
occult,
films,
but doesn't have the occult aspect. But it has like you have this moment of like they're dealing with something that is weird, unfamiliar, but they don't actually tell you.
But you see, those movies are all also FBI thrillers.
Yes.
This movie wasn't an FBI thriller.
It was not.
Well, it starts off as
but
one.
it starts off as one.
Exactly. That's one of the things. I came in similarly to you, just that I had in my head, I had people were comparing it to Silence of the Lambs. And I was like, holy shit, this might be something that worth noting. I'm going to write in for a good one. And it wasn't at all Silence of the Lambs. It's not an FBI thriller.
Yeah.
And
which again, that can be fine because maybe that's just not the film that Oz Perkins was trying to do. I guess for me, so I agree with you in the sense that I felt that I was promised a detective story.
Yes.
Something to the effect of a detective story. where there would be a certain process of discovery, uncovering clues, almost like interviewing witnesses, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily happen. And yet, the Longlegs character and the killer as like, okay, what does the serial killer do? To me was particularly interesting. It was like, okay, there is something unnerving to the idea that you have a killer that is never detected within the premises of the home. It's always some kind of family homicide, suicide, effectively. It's a father killing their children and their spouse, effectively. And again, you never detect Longlegs is there other than with notes, effectively, that are left that almost like Manchurian Candidate style activates something within the father that compels them to go on this murderous spree, basically. That's interesting. I think that's a particularly kind of compelling scenario and a very compelling premise.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that we're told it's like there were like 13 or 14.
There's a pattern to the kills, pattern to them, which is exactly classic FBI thriller
and
shit.
that you see the tree effectively that she's like uncovering.
But that's it. That's it to the mystery.
And that's the thing. It has so many of the aesthetics of
exactly. It has the aesthetics.
Really good FBI thriller.
Exactly. But then but what's the payoff, or what's the actual aha moment?
Yeah.
There's none.
I think I agree with you. And I think, again, but this is also something that was to me compelling about the film, is that unlike those other movies, this film also seems to like take place always in the aftermath of an event, in the sense that, like, okay, when they go to the farmhouse, it was like the ketchup farm. So like, you know what I'm talking about? Whatever.
Yeah.
That family farmhouse that they go to that cabin, and that's where they find the doll. Because Longlegs is also like a doll maker, and that plays a critical role in like the plot of the film, with like the occult elements that I imagine we'll discuss momentarily. But that house is like abandoned, and it seems like it's been abandoned for an extended period of time. In fact,
ever since the murders, really.
Yeah, exactly. Since the murders. And I think the daughter who survived that event is the one that's in the asylum, effectively. And that she herself is even compelled by Longlegs. So all that stuff is particularly interesting. It's this very much like almost, again, you're seeing these detectives operating, very long after the fact of the events of these killings. Yet I agree with you in the sense that it almost seems to peddle more in the aesthetics as opposed to making the detective story the central kind of meat of the film.
And then
and that's what makes it partly kind of disappointing in a sense. Partly disappointing in a sense, I'd say. It's so difficult because, so like, okay, let me say another thing that I really loved about that film. So something that we've kind of touched on with some of the other films that we've talked about today are shots, just like, framing. It's blocking, all these things. Oz Perkins has a particularly incredible way of using negative space in a frame. To me, these were the most, if we want to use terrifying, at least like nerve-wracking moments of the film. So like, I remember, Kenny, that we had talked about this. There's a moment where our kind of lead character is in a library and is, and even when she's in her house, remember that scene in her house where, again, she is in the frame. She's, again, doing some kind of work, but again, you never get the clear sense of like what exactly it is that she's working on. But you get these moments where you look at like the space behind her, or it turns to a hallway and a row of books. And I think what was so interesting, and again, even in her home, where it's this amazing shot where she's at her desk, it's a low angle, she's at her desk, and at the bottom right of the frame is the door, the hall into her kitchen. And it's
very
always
unsettling.
It's very unsettling. It's always framed that way. And to the point that, again, you feel like there is something deeply almost evil, unsettling, just kind of there's something somewhat horrifying about the use of negative frame and negative space in this film. You feel like dread. That's the most accurate word for it. There's a dread that surrounds this empty space, and I love that. I really love that.
I think honestly, one of the, and I completely agree with you. I think the shot composition was really good.
Yeah.
I think the aesthetics of the movie again were really good. I think the cuts, there was a really nice cut. Speaking of negative space usage, where you have a shot that's focused on the main character, and then it cuts.
Yeah.
And on that cut, it's very unsettling when it happens. The room that it cuts to is the titular character's like workshop.
Yeah.
And in that workshop, the outline of the main character is there in a way that sort of like is implied by the things in the frame. So if you can imagine, if you have a shot with the main character and then all of a sudden you switch to a new shot and it's a library of books. And in the library of books, the outlines on the back covers of the books is the outline of the character.
Yeah,
I'm giving an extreme like example to try to emphasize it. It's more, in this case, it's more like different objects strewn about and different color coordinations. But the outline of the main character is there.
Yeah.
And that's very unsettling. At first, when the cut happens, you don't understand why it's unsettling to you. But it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And yet, with all of this, it feels like, again, my pet peeve is almost that it's almost like this is a movie that started out one way and then a board of trustees decided that they needed. So I guess we can talk about the ending. Should we talk about the ending? Because I'm about to talk about the ending.
But we could straight up just say, like, I think for the three of us, the moment that the film really takes the downward turn is the moment that Longlegs is no longer the principal villain. It's the moment that the mom takes this center stage in the narrative. So in part, what's bizarre talking about this film is that, and this is where it kind of has the plot of a certain kind of like noir detective story, is that what initially seems to be distant from the protagonist, where she's like, okay, I'm investigating these series of crimes, it then is revealed effectively that she is an intricate kind of part of the Longlegs killings, to the point that he has been living under her house, her family home, since she was a child. Specifically, that moment. Again, this is maybe an interpretation. I don't know if that's like wholly what they say, but that opening moment in the film where she sees him is effectively the moment that Longlegs inaugurates himself into the lives of this family. And what's particularly, again, interesting is the framing of the Longlegs killings are always father, wife, and they're like a father, mother, children scenario. Yet for our main character, she has no father. And there's no indication of who her father is. It's a kind of single family or a single parent household. And so he's able to almost like worm his way into this situation. I think for me, it's, and maybe again, I'm not smart enough to get the certain kind of message or kind of thematic kind of overarching picture that this film is trying to paint about why that is necessarily relevant to the killings.
One interesting thing, right, is that as you said, it's sort of you discover. Okay, so to go over through how the killings work.
Magic.
You find out
there is
exactly.
magic.
You find out magic exists.
Magic.
Which one horrible.
Which is the moment that the film goes downhill. Is the moment that effectively magic or the devil. It's really like this evil demonic influence truly permeates the film. And it's interesting because like it's not like we are totally opposed to films that, you know,
have magic.
have magic or like or explicitly, you know, claiming.
You have to be very careful in mysteries, because when you enter magic, then the rules are broken down, right?
Because now everything is possible.
Exactly. And the best part is the way that you figure this out. They literally in the movie, they insert a YouTube video that explains this is Longlegs explained. And they literally explain everything, how the magic system works. Oh yeah, so the Longlegs guy, he's a devil worshiper. He builds these dolls, then he puts magic balls in them, and then
Literally.
Yeah,
And
that's true. Yeah, literally.
and then he this is how ridiculous it sounds, but this is literally
The plot of
what
the
happens.
film,
And then the mother of the main character dresses up as a nun, goes to these houses.
She delivers
Why does she dress up as a nun? Because everyone would trust a nun to come into their house.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course. And then
Because they have to. Okay, so the dolls have to break that threshold,
Yes.
the house threshold, and then they need to be opened by the family.
Yes.
and they need to be and once they're kept inside the house for long enough, the magic ball does its magic. And
It's influencing the father specifically, if I remember correctly. Like, isn't because like this happens with the FBI man.
yeah.
That he's like hearing things that are compelling him.
It also creates like a fog for the child.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they don't remember it,
Mhm.
explaining why our main character doesn't remember anything about Longlegs.
Yeah.
And that's the mystery. It's literally when this is not an exaggeration. When the mystery is explained, they cut off from the movie and they put essentially a narrator explaining everything I just explained to you.
Yeah. There's
Longlegs
literally a
explained.
person doing exactly what Matthew just did,
Yes. Yeah.
but with like B-roll. And it's atrocious. And the thing is, I really am in love with the first half of this movie.
Yeah.
And I do honestly think that some of the themes, even with the Longlegs character,
Mhm.
for example, the character seems to have like parental issues. I think you have like moments where he sort of like encounters this girl in a shop and she like calls for her daddy to like daddy. Oh, Jesus Christ. She says daddy and he says daddy.
That's true, yeah.
But he says like then he goes and drives in the car and then he like yells like daddy, like obviously Nick Cage moment, but also part of the character.
Well, but he doesn't totally seem like, and I guess this is weird to say, but it's like you get enough indications and kind of implicit signs about the Longlegs character, to think that he's not like a cartoon villain.
Yeah,
in the sense that like he seems to be a legitimately twisted man. He's twisted. But he grew up.
He's so fucked up.
He grew up during the Satanic Panic,
and then he got a botched plastic surgery.
Yeah, his botched plastic surgery, and he likes heavy metal. And again, it's playing into these kind of like very, I guess at this
aesthetics.
Point, the aesthetics of Satanic Panic, and again, what we'd call like okay, this is almost like the arch supervillain of like this moment in
the Christian mom.
Yeah,
like,
the Christian
villain.
mom like conservative politics of like oh. This is the result of listening to heavy metal rock music, being into Dungeons and Dragons and all this kind of shit. Like this is the end point.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. Again, like just in the sense that like, okay, this is a film that is trying to give you enough of an indication that it's playing into some kind of real world. You could derive some kind of reality from this character.
Yep.
But then it falls apart. That's the issue. Then it almost it really is just the moment that the occult is introduced.
Yeah.
I can actually pinpoint the exact frame that the movie lost me.
You can. It's like the Simpsons like moments. You can pinpoint the frame in which his heart breaks.
Yes, no, that's straight up. Exactly. Yeah, like the moment that there's a doll that our main character shoots. Blows the head off of, or was it the mother that shoots?
The mother.
The mother blows the head off of this doll, and you see the ball.
Literal. Yeah,
you see the ball that Longlegs had kind of implanted into the doll version of our main character. This sounds so convoluted, but this is the film. You see steam rising off.
Spooky black smoke.
Spooky black smoke. Our main character collapses.
Yep.
At that exact moment, the film lost me.
And guess what? That is the exact moment where the YouTube video comes on.
Yes.
You think the balls are the same ones that they use in Phantasm?
The Christmas ornaments.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy. That'd be an amazing.
That'd be a better movie.
Are they the same universe?
Yo, wait a minute.
Dude.
The Don Coscarelli overlap. Maybe Oz Perkins is a fan.
Where are you, Don Coscarelli? Your only hope.
Bubba Hotep.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one, just the subversion. If there's subversion, and then there's fucking subversion. There's like, I do honestly think that one of the arguments that I heard with this was like, okay, it subverted your expectations, which fair. But the thing is, when you set up an entire movie, creating all of these expectations, creating all these really compelling plot points, you have this thing with the main character. Again, the dynamic with her mom, like not like, again, the aggressor usually in these family like murders is the father. She doesn't have a father present at home. Again, all of that really compelling, really amazing, really interesting. And then you just have magic is real, so your stakes are complete, like nothing that you assumed was ever true. And anything that you may assume may not be true either. Anything is possible. And then in a mystery movie, literally the explanation, it's just no. I mean, I don't like it.
So okay, let's jump to the ending a little bit. That final moment. So again, throughout the film, you basically have like 4 characters in this whole movie. You have like our main character. You have her FBI boss, effectively. Yes. You have the mother. You've got Longlegs. These are the 4 central pillars of this film.
Most of the movie, there's only 2 characters in a scene.
Yeah, which again, that can be okay. That doesn't necessarily need to be a knock.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
But when you have a cast that's so small, you're really like, oh my god, Longlegs had an accomplice. We only know 2 people. Yes. We only know 2 people in this movie. So it's like,
and one of them is weird.
Yeah, exactly. So like, the mother's a hoarder, Oh, what's up with this basement? It's like, you're kind of like, oh, okay, you're leading me on, and it's like, okay, I figured, I got you. I figured it out.
Yeah.
And it's just because the cast is so limited. That's the reason.
Yeah.
But okay, the film basically concludes with the very scenario that has kind of occurred throughout all of these different killings, where the mother takes the doll and goes to the FBI boss's home.
Yes.
To deliver, because again, there's something important about birthdays.
Yes.
Like each of the killings occur on a particular birthday of the daughter or something like that.
So every single daughter in every family that has died has the same birthday, which is the 14th.
Yes.
Or the 13th. I think it was the 14th.
Yeah.
And this is the key. The murders are in staggered formation centered around the birthday.
Yes.
And spoiler alert, at this point, whatever. Main character, their birthday, the 14th.
Yes, exactly.
But we find out that it's really clever in the way that it introduces, which again makes me angry because it just tells you at the end. But we find out that the main character's birthday is coming up because her mom is like, oh, it's your birthday, it's your birthday soon, all this stuff. But in the beginning of the movie, we also have this really amazing interaction where you sort of establish the character's attitude with other people.
Yeah.
Which is like this very reserved, almost awkward dynamic. And it's done with a scene with the daughter of the FBI agent. Yeah. And the way that it's done is that the daughter of the FBI agent, sort of has this weird, this weird awkward interaction with her, and it's really cute. And then the mom walks in.
FBI agent, remember?
Exactly, And the mom walks in, the mom of the girl that the main character is talking to. And she goes, the little daughter goes, can I have her? Can I invite her to my birthday? And it's like, why don't you invite her yourself? And then it's like, oh, come next week. Which sort of almost subliminally establishes the fact that this daughter also has probably the 14th as a birthday.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so now you have this connection that you can use yourself to find these things out. But then it doesn't fucking care. The movie doesn't give a fuck that you made that connection because it's just going to tell you at the end.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's the most frustrating part of the movie is that, like, okay, with each of the other films, like, okay, Silence of the Lambs, Seven, there's always some kind of moment where it's like, oh, the aha moment.
Figured
like
it out.
Exactly. And this film, it almost robs you of it.
Yeah.
In a very frustrating way. But again, so basically the film concludes with the mother inaugurating what is supposed to be the final iteration of these killings, because it's for her the pathway to make sure that her daughter is not something.
So
by the
she
devil,
made
like
a deal
vessel.
with the devil, effectively.
Yeah,
She made a deal with Longlegs, but by extension,
but
the
yeah,
devil.
by proxy, the devil. Yeah.
And the deal was she would allow the daughter to live,
Yes.
and her family to continue on, in exchange for doing these things
Yeah.
for
Exactly.
Longlegs.
Yeah.
And the idea is, by the end of it, and again, I think this is why it's important that the main character doesn't have a father figure.
Yes.
She is the one that kills the father figure of the last family that's about to be murdered.
Yes.
And the idea behind this is like she is going to be inoculated effectively by like the devil.
Yes.
But then she has a duel with the devil and she shoots the devil. But yeah, go. Sorry.
No. So she delivers. So the mother delivers the doll. Our character gets there kind of too late.
Yes.
Where the daughter has been introduced to the doll, and the father is already beginning to turn effectively, to the point where he's saying things like, "Oh, honey, will you go with me into the kitchen? I can bash your brains," and like something like that, effectively.
And she's like, "We'll be right back," and he's like, "No,
exactly.
you won't."
Yeah, no, you won't. Okay, and then you just hear them like killing, like him killing her in the room, and again, legitimately like horrifying scene. He returns in preparation to kill the daughter, effectively. There's something horrifying, but also kind of like awkward about the whole staging of that scene. I don't know how best to explain it. Like, the entire premise of like, this daughter's having her birthday, and it's like,
it's just goofy.
Yeah, and it's like, the only person there is the FBI lady. Like, just a little weird, whatever.
There's the devil
suspension
JPEG
of
too.
Huh?
The devil JPEG behind.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, when the door closes, right?
Yeah. So to give the viewer some context, through several scenes, you have this thing where like a silhouette of the devil.
Yeah.
Really like a goat-like creature.
Yeah, when like doors close or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A goat-like creature that has this like aura around people, and then it's the moment where it's most obvious is the B-roll.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to show you that the devil was there all along. But also in the last scene, the devil is there. There's also like a thing with the eyes, but
exactly.
And people thought that was really creepy. It was legitimately creepy, but at that point you're just like, but what's happening?
Yeah.
I guess my brain is broke.
I mean, but either way, so the film basically ends. It ends with one moment. It's the daughter, who has been, again, our central character throughout the whole film, kills her mother. She's like, "Oh no, don't do that," because again, we this is my way to save you, and she ends up killing her. And it's again a kind of emblematic of this incredibly toxic mother-daughter relationship. The daughter will obviously never be the same after this. It's just an incredibly traumatic moment. So it's interesting that the film chooses to end on that piece. Again, kind of solidifying this mother-daughter relationship. I think it's kind of it's sad that there's not a lot of interactions between Longlegs and our lead character.
Yeah.
There's just that one moment in the cell, where Longlegs kills himself, basically, at the interview room,
where he speaks in riddles.
He speaks in riddles,
and then he kills himself.
I think that like
Hail Satan.
Yeah, Hail Satan, whatever. It's goofy. It's really goofy. I think that this film, the tragedy of this film, and it's not a tragedy because it's like, look, a lot of films are like this. It has great moments, but it falters under its own weight.
Yeah.
It tries to do too much, and specifically the directions that it goes and the subversions that it takes, it more just undercuts what could have been a legitimately kind of interesting film. The one thing to say to that, though, is it would have been a film that we had seen before.
Yeah.
Which is a Silence of the Lambs type film. We wanted what we were familiar with.
That's fair.
Not in a bad way. I don't think that's necessarily a negative or anything, but it's like, we had our expectations and they were not satisfied or met. And instead we got this other thing that felt, and I think this is the part that was the most difficult to swallow for me, is that like in reading interviews with Oz Perkins, this seems like such an incredibly personal film.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like an opportunity for him to think through his own relationship with his family, his mother, his own traumas in childhood. And I think in part, that's a great exercise for Oz Perkins. But as a viewer, it's so idiosyncratic. It's so unique to Oz Perkins' experience and his perception of the world that it loses me. And I think what's interesting about that is that, like, I don't necessarily feel that way watching a David Lynch film, which is, again, so idiosyncratic, so specific to the way that David Lynch views the world. And I think the reason for that is, I think David Lynch, he tries to go bigger. He tries to engage themes of, again, like just in each of his films. Again, parenthood. With Twin Peaks, you're looking at a certain kind of like feminism and femininity that he's engaging with. With The Elephant Man, you're looking at kind of the outcast, all these different kinds of things. And here it's like Oz Perkins is almost doing some of these things. So he's engaging with parenthood as a kind of theme, but it's so small scale. Yeah. It's so limited. It's so unique to his perception of the world that it loses me. Mm-hmm. That's my frustration with this film, you know. And again, I basically didn't get what I wanted, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, no.
But it's nonetheless a kind of frustrating experience.
If I'll tell you what I told my SO when I got out of that film. Yeah. If I watch one more film like that this year, I'm done. Hail Satan.
I'm a long I mean, like okay.
Doll making time.
So, but like, let me ask you, Matthew, and this might be a good opportunity for us to start like rounding out the conversation. We have 3 films: Late Night with the Devil, In a Violent Nature, Longlegs. In a Violent Nature and Longlegs, they seem to be kind of maybe aesthetically trucking in the same lanes in the way that Late Night with the Devil
in the same direction
isn't. And I think it's fair to say that, like, again, some of the things that Longlegs is doing aesthetically, formally, technically are really interesting and do actually kind of elevate the picture for me. And I'm going to give one example, again, another one of these great moments where it's just like things are holding and pausing. When our 2 FBI agents go into the cabin effectively, or it's like the, oh my God, what is it? It's like a barn, right?
Yeah.
They go into the barn. They walk into the barn, and it's them walking up to the camera. They move past the camera, and then the camera holds on just the outside.
It's a good shot.
But not just is it a good shot. There's something so eerie and dreadful about that shot because you feel like they are being watched, stalked. That almost like Longlegs could be permeating any frame of this film. And I love that. I really do love that.
For sure.
So in a sense, it doesn't sound completely like In a Violent Nature, which is much more kind of, you know, maybe it isn't doing that as much.
It has shots that, you know, create dread, but they're not like that. They, for example, when you leave the killer, whenever you leave the killer and you're focused on the survivors, you're always like looking around for him, you know, like in the woods.
Yeah.
Because there's been points where like they're kind of scattering and panic, and then you're looking at the tree line in the back of the scene, and that's put there on purpose for that exact reason. Yeah. And you're feeling that dread, but no, it's done better in Longlegs for sure. Yeah. That's one of the only things I probably enjoyed from the film. But
so why wouldn't you want to see another film like Longlegs again? And this is just like an opportunity for you to say like you're almost like your final thoughts on this film.
Okay, I guess like the problem is that I wouldn't mind, for example, if the future of horror was all like this.
Yeah,
but by God, let it be a good film, right? Like I feel like a lot of these films, when these films try to go in that direction, and they're bad. Now what you have is a boring film, you know, and I feel like that's the worst thing that a film could be.
And that seems to be the watchword for like some of the films that we talked about is that like
boring,
that they either are boring or they potentially begin to veer in the direction of losing steam and interest.
Yeah. And that is the worst thing that a film could be.
Yeah.
You know, and so
Phantasm's not like that.
Exactly. You know, like there's Dog Soldiers isn't like that.
Dog Soldiers is like that.
You think Dog Soldiers is boring?
Not like that.
I don't think it was boring.
No, I don't think it's boring. No,
it's bad, but it's not boring.
No, I wouldn't.
I remember. Let's not do this.
All right.
We're not going to rehash this. But no, I don't think it's boring. I don't think it's boring.
Okay, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, if you attempt this, directors, right? You attempt this type of movie, and it's not good, it's going to be a boring film. And that's the problem with when I have with these movies is that if it's not a Hereditary, I'm not gonna enjoy myself. It's the opposite of enjoyment. I'm gonna be in pain.
Yeah, you're gonna turn yourself off from the film.
That's the problem with these types of films, So name me another one of the A24, like Vivitch. That's an interesting movie, right?
Vivitch is amazing.
Which is a super slow burn, but guess what? It wasn't boring.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are all these films are films that again have these panning shots.
And what's actually, I think the Vivitch, that's a great example because it also goes the full occult route.
Yep.
Okay, but it's a beautiful payoff, right?
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that like I think it's a good comp. That's probably a better comp to this film than it is like Silence of the Lambs or something, because the Vivitch does go the full like there is a devil, there is a witch, and it's really fucking shit up like. But it plays in the whole like, oh, maybe
and you're doubting it the whole time.
You're doubting it the whole time.
And the payoff is that no, it is actually real. Yeah. Right. So
and honestly, it didn't take away from it.
No, it didn't.
And I think
it was the best moment of the film.
But that's why going full occult isn't necessarily the bad move. It seems like it's more
the B-roll.
The execution.
Yeah.
The execution for Longlegs. That was the issue. It's the way that it handled its use of the occult, because even still, like I thought, okay, for instance, a scene that I thought was interesting was when she's getting the images and they're asking her to like, okay, what is this image that's going to be coming up? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember this scene?
Yeah.
It's like where she gets like half of them right, half of them wrong.
Yes.
And she makes it very clear to the FBI man that it's like, oh, he's like, oh, you got 50% right. She's like, well, I also got 50% wrong. So it's like speaking to a certain kind of like intuition that she has. That's interesting. And it speaks to like, oh, you don't know what's going on. But again, it's the moment that it's almost like the grand Machiavellian plans of Longlegs, that Longlegs has been kind of masterminding this incredible thing. That's the part where it's like, oh, this is a little ridiculous.
And he doesn't. The thing is, as a character, we never are introduced to like this.
You get 2 scenes with him. Really.
Yeah, exactly.
2 scenes with him.
You don't know anything about Longlegs. You don't even know why he's called Longlegs.
But again, that can be fine. Anthony Hopkins is only in 14 minutes or 13 minutes of.
Those are some strong.
But he
that's what I'm saying,
exudes that sort of personality.
That's why exactly. Like,
but I don't think Longlegs was even in the movie for 14 minutes. I think it must have been.
Right, yeah,
it's probably less, way less.
Yeah, it was probably like
2
10 minutes.
scenes.
Yeah. But maybe there's maybe this is the thing. Maybe there's almost like not enough Longlegs throughout the movie to the point where when you get that big reveal that it's, oh, this Longlegs is this man possessed by the devil, maybe just don't buy it.
But the thing is, there's also no one else really that you see like investigating.
Yeah.
Again, I don't like comparing it to Silence of the Lambs too much, because at the end of the day, this is its own movie. It's unfair.
Yeah.
But if we're going to make a small comparison, quickly,
we're going to pedal in this.
With the Silence of the Lambs, the whole entire time you have this juxtaposition between what Jodie Foster's character is doing and what the rest of the bureau is telling her to do. In this movie, you don't have that. In this movie, the only investigator, as far as you're concerned, as far as you witness, is the main character.
And funnily enough, you only get the one scene where it's like her perception of a situation goes in conflict with what a standard FBI agent would be thinking, which is the opening scene of that guy walking up to the house and her saying, no, go call someone.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the only moment that you really get.
I feel like, I don't know. I the way I mentioned this in sort of like our own shared conversations before this was that there's a better movie here that exists in either a rewrite or this movie exists because of a rewrite.
Yeah.
And I feel that's unfair and also maybe mean to say to a movie, but that's that as a viewer, as a humble viewer of a movie that I went to watch and had a time with.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. I think that's a good take. And overall, I think for each of the 3 films that we talked about, they're all worth watching. I think Longlegs is the one that's worth watching, almost like from a dissecting what happened, what went wrong in the script and in the editing. You know?
This film is so bad.
It's not that it's
the
so
only
bad.
way to enjoy it.
It's not that it's so bad.
Is to figure out why it's so bad.
The ways that it messes up for me are so interesting.
Yeah.
Because
It's like watching a car crash.
it is like watching a car crash because you're like, oh my God, it's like watching a car crash where it's like unexpected that the car crash happens. So you're like, oh my God, this person's driving on a completely sunny, empty road, and then out of nowhere they're hit by a semi. And it's like, halfway through the movie, this whole other fucking plot unfolds. And it's like, oh, okay, well, hold on. You know. So I think with that, have we covered all our bases for the films that we wanted to discuss for today?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, next up is Basket Case. And hopefully you'll get another one hopefully within the next 2 years.
Well, let's not say
no promises, but you know. And so I think with that, this is Mike signing out.
This is Matt signing out.
This is Short Legs.
Short Legs.
Yo.
All right. With that, we'll see you on the next one. Bye.